Hello and welcome. My name is Whitney and I'm an anesthesia intern documenting my journey as I go through my first year of residency. In today's video, I will be going over the first 2 weeks of my cardiology elective. I usually try to do one video a week, but this week I ended up taking step 3, which means that last week, when I was on my first week of cardiology, I was either at the hospital, studying at home, or just relaxing. So I really didn't want to do too much outside of that. But we'll go ahead and go over how the first 2 weeks of my elective have gone. And then, as always, I'll end the video by going over how many hours I actually worked both last week and this week. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, cardiology is an elective at my program. And all that really means is that it's not a core rotation that has to be done by everyone in my program. It's just something that, like a block where we get to decide what we want to do. So for me, I really like cardiology. So that was one of the electives that I chose. Um, my interest in cardiology, I guess, started back in medical school. I think it was my favorite subject that we actually learned about. I really just liked the physiology of the heart. I just think it's super interesting. I love learning about like how it works and like the pathologies associated with it. I just think it's really interesting overall. And I actually also really like the application of that information. Just looking at the problems that patients come in with that are cardiac related. I don't know, I just find it really interesting. I really like the imaging involved with it, like the echocardiography, which is an ultrasound of the heart. You can learn actually a lot about the heart and the health status of a person based off of that. So I just really like that. I also really like trying to read EKGs or ECGs, sometimes people will call it, which really just looks at the rhythm and the actual electric conduction that's going through the heart. So there's just a lot of things that I really liked about cardiology. And I got pretty lucky because the attending that I worked with over the past 2 weeks has actually been really good about teaching, which I, like don't take for granted. She actually like sits down with us and like shows us what she's looking at with patients, and she like really goes over like what's happening for the patient and goes through like the imaging and their history. So I feel like I've actually been learning a lot, which is nice. I don't know, I'm just having a really good time on this rotation. If you watched my most recent videos, you know that I just got off of my general surgery rotation, which overall wasn't a bad rotation, especially in terms of like general surgery for interns. I feel like it could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't too bad overall. I still wouldn't say it was my favorite rotation though. So to be ending that and then coming onto this service, I feel like I've really enjoyed it just because overall I feel like I'm learning a lot in a subject I really like. So it's been a lot of fun. So now to talk a little bit more about the structure of how everything works. So on my team or the service, we have the attending and there's just one, and she's on call pretty much like 24/7 when she's in the hospital. So she's always on call. And then there are residents that work with her. So they're on our team right now, there's one senior and 3 interns. And it's kind of interesting because there's different interns there that I'm used to. Like there's an emergency medicine intern. There's also just like internal medicine interns, and then me, and I'm a transitional year intern. So we kind of get like a cross residency group there, which is fun, just to meet new people. And she'll just, as she's getting consults, she being our attending, she'll send them out to us as both the interns and the senior. And we're just supposed to go see the patient and figure out what they have going on cardiac wise. So, since this is a specialty, we really just focus in on the cardiology aspect of the patients that we're seeing. It's not like a general internal medicine where we're looking at all the different systems. We're really just focusing on the cardiology part of it. So that's also kind of nice because it can get kind of overwhelming when you're looking at everything, but just to focus in on one portion of the patient, I feel like you can actually learn about them and it's a little less overwhelming overall. So it's been nice, and I feel like I'm actually learning quite a bit just based off of that. So, yes, we get the consults from her. We do the chart review. We go see the patient. And then, usually, sometime like late morning, maybe around like 10:30, we go and round as a team. So, we all come together and we go one by one through all of our patients and give a kind of a brief presentation on them. Definitely nothing as thorough as like other rotations that I've been on. And then she'll go over the patient as well. And this is where we go over the imaging that a patient has, usually just looking at like the echo is what we call it, or the ultrasound of the heart, the echocardiography. And she actually has a fellowship in reading those, so she knows a lot of information about it. So she gives a lot of details, which is really fun for me. I don't, like I said, I really like this stuff, so for me, I really like it. And then yeah, we just go through all of our patients, and once we're done with that, it seems like this week we are kind of just like done for the day, which is nice. We usually have had like a lecture, like an intern lecture or a internal medicine lecture around noontime, and then after that, we usually just like wait around. We waited around a little bit and then would just leave because there would be no afternoon consults. So it was actually pretty nice schedule wise, which I'll go over, of course, at the end as well. But one thing I'll say about this cardiology rotation as well, and I feel like this kind of lends itself to being on the specialist side of thing where we're more focused in on one area that of a patient's care, is I feel like there's been a good amount of variety with our patients in terms of like their presentations and like what they actually have going on. But there's also a good amount of repetition. So I feel like I'm seeing a lot of the same things, just like different flavors of them, I guess you could say. Like we've been seeing a lot of heart failure patients, and so that's a problem that I've seen over and over again. But there's a lot of different things that can cause heart failure. So it's been nice because there's been some patients who have like different reasons for like why their heart's having, like heart failure. So even though there has been some repetition with it, I feel like there's enough variety and differences between them to where I feel like I actually am seeing a lot, even though it's kind of the same problem over and over again, if that makes sense. So that's really all that I have to say about my first week of my cardiology elective. It was really fun, and I don't know, I was also getting ready for step 3, so I feel like it was fun at the hospital, and then I would come home and just like study and try to relax when I could. But that was really all that was happening last week. And then for this week, I took step 3 on Monday and Tuesday. So it is a 2-day exam, and both the days are full long days. The first day is scheduled for 7 hours, the second day is scheduled for 9 hours, so a total of 16. It was quite a bit, it was a ton of questions. um, but it's over with for now. I will say, even though they were scheduled for 7 and 9 hours, I got out early both days, so they were still long days, but I feel like I had a little bit of downtime on that first day, before getting ready for the second day. I know some people, just talking to like friends, they choose not to do the exam back to back in terms of like day one on Monday and the second day on Tuesday. Some people like to space it out a little bit. You can do, I think, up to 2 weeks in between the exam days. There's some kind of rule or like time limit. And I think it really just depends on like personal preference. For myself, I really just wanted to get it over with. So I decided to schedule them back to back Monday and Tuesday. And then for the rest of the week, I actually didn't go into the hospital for my cardiology service at all. We had a different attending who was on call, so we were working with someone else. And for this one, if it was kind of like a slower day or there really wasn't much going on, he just told us to take the day off. And he that happened twice. It happened on Wednesday and Friday of this week. So I didn't have to go in those days. And then on Thursday, I was actually doing interviews for the incoming class. So I was actually like asking people questions and like giving information about our program on Thursday, so I didn't have to go in. So I did not into the hospital at all this week, and it's been kind of a treat. I feel like after taking the step exam, I was just pretty tired. I think understandably, they're pretty long days, and it was a hard exam, so I was just like mentally exhausted by the end of the second day. I shouldn't say mentally exhausted. I was just really tired and ready for a break. So it was definitely a welcomed surprise for me. And I feel a lot more refreshed now that I've had some downtime and feel ready for my third and final week of this elective. All right, well, that is all that I have over my first 2 weeks of my cardiology elective. This is a 3-week elective, so I still have one more week to go, and I'll be sad when it's over. I'm actually having a lot of fun on this one, so that's all right. We'll go ahead and go over how many hours I actually worked over the past 2 weeks. I'll pull them up one by one. So, starting with the first week, yes, so the elective itself is Monday through Friday. so I do have weekends off. However, on this first week, I was still finishing up my surgery rotation, which did include weekends. So that very first Sunday, I did end up working um, about 7 hours. So, just went for a really long stretch of days, but that's okay. That was my last surgery day. They actually let me out a little bit early just because it was my last one. So I was really thankful for that. All right, so that first day on Sunday was for surgery, and then Monday and Tuesday were really light hours wise. I ended up having to do interviews on those days as well, and those were about 3.5 hours each day. So on Monday and Tuesday, I did that in the afternoon with the interviews. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday were very reasonable hours wise. Would get to the hospital a little bit early just to make sure I knew everything about my patients. And then after the lecture that was going on that day, that is when we would just wait around a little bit. And then once we didn't get any consults by 2, we would just head out. So overall, for that first week, it ended up being a little bit under 30 hours, just at 29.5. If you include the interview time, it came to like 36.5. So a full time week, I guess you could say, but overall, really not too bad. And now I'll bring up my second week, which looks a lot different. So I did have that Sunday off, and then Monday and Tuesday again were just those exams. So pretty long days as well, but you can see that I got out a little bit earlier. And then Wednesday and Friday, I did have off just because the attending said there really wasn't much going on. And then Thursday, I did another set of interviews as well. So, really, I could say I was at the hospital 0 hours this week. I know there was quite a bit that I was doing, but in terms of like time at the hospital, I had no time. But otherwise, I did just have those interviews on Thursday, which was about like 3.5 hours. So, really not too bad. All right. Well, that is all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming along. I will see you next week once I finish up my final week of my cardiology elective. Take care, everyone.